of course, stuff like that's awesome to hear about, right? You're like, they went from 5 wins, and then 5 years later, they win the national title. But the ones that matter to me the most are the ones that I hear from somebody and they say, I finally feel better. Or I feel different. I look in the mirror and I'm like proud of who I am. Or my kids tell me that they're excited to see, the change in me or things like that. And that's what it's always been about. It's always been about becoming the type of person that you want to be. And so I think anytime I hear stories like that, I think it's exciting.
So when this, was it a coach or was it?
Yeah, Travis Wall, he's the head coach at St. Olaf's. He's the head coach at Kenyon now.
So he talked about systems there. Most of us think about to-do lists and goals and those kinds of things. What is the difference between a system and a goal?
I was very goal-driven for a long time. I mean, I probably still am. I don't think there's any way to get around the fact that we all have goals and think about the outcomes we want and so on. But a goal is about the outcome that you want to achieve, and a system is about the process for getting there. And so your goal is the target, the outcome, the thing you're shooting for. Your system is the collection of daily habits that you follow. And if there is ever a gap between your goal and your system, if there's ever a gap between your desired outcome and your daily habits will always win. And so almost by definition, your current habits are perfectly designed to deliver your current results. If you want to see like where you're going to end up, just follow the trajectory of your habits. What's the process you've been running for the last 6 months or year or 2 years, and they've carried you almost inevitably to the outcomes that you have right now. Now, I'm not saying that habits are the only thing that matter in life, right? Like strategy matters, luck, randomness, those misfortune, those things can influence the outcome. But by definition, luck and randomness are not under your control, and your habits are. And the only reasonable, rational approach in life is to focus on the pieces that are within your control. So I think goals can be good for setting a sense of direction. They're good for clarity, especially if you have a team, get everybody rowing in the same direction. But once you've decided what the goal is, you should basically set it on the shelf, metaphorically speaking, and spend the vast majority of your time focused on building a better system. How are the habits we're executing each day moving us closer to this outcome that we want? And so where I've come, after talking about this for 5 or 6 years now since the book's been out, where I've come down on it is goals are best for people who care about winning once. Systems are best for people who care about winning repeatedly. If you really want to make progress again and again, if you want to get to the top and stay at the top, you need some process for staying up there, some collection of habits that's going to keep this machine running. So this is why, I say in the book, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems.
As you were talking, I was thinking so much about business and founders and entrepreneurs because they all have big goals. We want to build the best AI app or the best, restaurant. And they stay really focused on those. But the greatest founders that I think I've met and interviewed on this show are actually really orientated on like what you call in the book first principles and systems. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to become more orientated towards systems and thinking about first principles, like the habits that lead to the goal? Or is it just so that some people have it? Because like Elon Musk is always talking about first principles and he thinks in terms of building the system.
I do think some of it is personality and like what's exciting to you to think about. Like some people are very future oriented and like thinking about what the systems are and what that would lead them to and so on, or more process oriented. But there are a number of questions that you can ask that can help you figure out like what systems you should be focused on. So like a couple of the ones I like, one question is, can my current habits carry me to my desired future? So you have a bunch of habits you're following right now. What path are you on? Can your current habits take you there? And they could be either way. Like sometimes the answer is yes, and what you need is patience. You just need to keep, staying on the path. But sometimes the answer is no, and then obviously something needs to change. You're hoping for one outcome, but then you're following a different lifestyle. So to want the outcome without the lifestyle is to like torture yourself. And what really matters is not, do you want the result? Anybody would like the result if you just hand it to them. The question is, do you want the lifestyle? One of the little things I try to do whenever I have a new business project I'm thinking about or something I'm excited about potentially doing, the first question I ask is, how do I want to spend my days? And so then you like draw a box, and inside that box, how can we make the most money, reach the most people, make the biggest impact, make the contribution that you want to make, but not outside of it. And what happens a lot of the time is people do that in reverse. They start by asking, how can we make the most money or reach the most people or make the biggest impact? And then they decide, oh, well, this is what I want to do, but it's actually outside of how they want to spend their days. And it's not going to work out well because, it goes back to our point previously about, is this fun? That if they don't want to spend their time that way, you're just grinding for a little while and eventually it's not going to work. That's the key for building systems that really work is this how you want to spend your days? The person who wants to live the lifestyle is much better positioned to get the result.
You say that there are multiple problems with goals. As a